This tutorial will remind you how to use Logger Pro to analyze a video. First you need to do is go to Insert, Movie, and you need to find out wherever you saved your videos. Once you find your videos, you can go ahead and open it. It should open up in Logger Pro. You should make your video as large as possible. That way you can get the best possible data. You need to come over here to open up the video analysis tool. First you need to do is set a scale for your video. Mine's kind of zoomed in. So right here from 50 to 60, that's not 1 meter. That's going to be 0.1 of a meter. So you need to set your scale appropriate to your video. After I've set my scale, I'm going to advance my movie until I can see the blue cart starting to come in. This is the third case, and this is probably one of the hardest ones to do, simply because when the carts stick together, the Velcro allows them to bounce a little bit, and the data doesn't look that good. But I'm going to go ahead, click this red dot to start adding points. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to select the corner of this red car. I'm going to start putting dots, and those dots are right on top of each other simply because this red cart is not moving. Every time I click my mouse, it advances the movie by 1 frame, and I add another data point. So now the cart starts to move. I'm going to keep tracking that corner. You can see the Velcro barely hangs on. There's just a few threads of it that are keeping it intact. So the blue cart is actually going to bounce a little bit. And you're going to take several data points. You want to be as accurate as possible when you're doing this so that you get as good results as possible. I would go a little bit slower. I'm doing it quickly just for the sake of the video, so I don't waste too much time. But you should be as accurate as possible when you place those data points. I'm going to go up here to where it says Select Point. That way if I accidentally click on the screen, it won't add any points that I don't want. So now I'm going to back up the video. I'm going to advance frame by frame, and I can see that my first blue dot appears in this frame right here. So I'm going to back up 1 frame. I'm going to go over here to where it says Set Active Point, and I'm going to add a point series. So now it's automatically selected this. So now I can, it's on point 2. So now I'm going to click Add a Point. And now I'm going to start tracking the blue card. So I'm going to click on this. Once again, I'm just trying to keep in track of the corner of the cart. You should be as accurate as possible. You need to keep track of the same part of the cart. I'm going quickly just for the sake of the video. And once again, it's not going to be great data because the Velcro kind of barely hangs on. It almost acts like a spring. You'll see the blue cart kind of go back and forth a little bit. So I'm continuing to track the corner of that cart. Please be as accurate as possible. When you get your data, that's what is going to give the accuracy to your lab. Okay, that should be enough points to get an idea of what's going on. Once again, I'll click up here where it says Select Point, just so if I click on my video, it won't add any extra points. I can now minimize my video, and I can take a look at my data. I've got all sorts of stuff over here. I've got X and Y, X2 and Y2. I'm going to right-click into my data, select Graph Options. I'm going to go to Axis Options. I'm going to uncheck all of my Y data, Y and Y2, and then that should be fine. So now I've got a graph of X and X2. You can see that the one cart was standing still, the other cart was moving to the left, and then at some point they collided. You can kind of see where they kind of bounce right in this area, and then after that they kind of go off together. They have the same slope and same negative velocity to the left. Next thing you need to do, this is a position versus time graph. You will need to add a proper title. After that, I'm going to insert another graph, and I want this graph. Once again, I'm going to make this big so I can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going to right-click, select Graph Options, and this time I want the X velocity and the X velocity for object 2. I'm going to uncheck the Y velocity and then hit Done. And unfortunately, this is what the graph is going to look like. We've got a really nice graph right here for the objects at rest. When you take the, we use the statistics tool. Click up here. I'm going to highlight this data. Click on the statistics. The red is that one. I'm going to get a nice mean of 0.00059. So you can just call that 0. Just round to 3 decimal places or to 2 decimal places. Actually, if I move this in a little bit to right there, now the mean is exactly 0. And that's what we expect because that cart was standing still. Over here, I did not do a very careful job of placing my data, so you can see it's kind of all over the place. But I'll still go ahead, highlight that portion of it, use the statistics to get a value for that, and the velocity of the cart as it was coming in. We'll slide that over to right about there. The velocity of the cart coming in was about 0.09 meters per second. So this isn't terrible data, but it's not great. Over here is where the data gets really difficult to see. It kind of goes off together, but because the Velcro allows the carts to bounce, it's not great data. We'll still use the statistics tool. We'll select both of these, and we'll hit OK. This one is for the green data. This one's for the red data. And you can see that these are lined up for the same. This one says it's 0.044. This one says it's negative 0.041. So they're not that far off. I would just go ahead for my lab and say that it was the average of those two. If this is 0.041, rounding to 3 decimal places, and this is 0.044, rounding to 3 decimal places, I would take the average of those two, and I would use that average for my V final. So you will need to take a screenshot of everything, your video, your data table, and both of your graphs. Take a screenshot and put that in your Google Doc. And then you will also need to copy and paste the graphs with their titles individually into your Google Doc. You may need to print this one out so you can write on it, but you will need to label V1 initial, V2 initial, and then over here, this area is V final. You should be able to follow the instructions in the PDF document posted online. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. Thank you.